Hi, my name is Claudia Escobar, and I'm going to be talking about assessing learners in an adult education program. I conducted an observation on Thursday, November 9th at 3 p.m. at the Apple Valley Adult Education Program under the watch of Adult Education Coordinator Adele McLean. I was able to observe the assessment CASAS given to a student, Edith Ratos, who gave me permission to be able to observe her assessment that day. According to OB and SAP, assessment is a process of collecting information about individuals or groups for the purpose of making decisions. The orientation assessment appointments that students like Edith are scheduled for is exactly doing that, collecting information about them. We learned from Hall that assessments can serve various purposes, and one of them is to establish what the student's knowledge and understanding is. Having the student take the CASAS e-test when they first enroll helps identify what the student already knows. We need to keep in mind that most of the students enrolling in the adult education program have been out of school for many years, which means that their educational information is really outdated. Having the opportunity to observe the assessment process made me conclude that the CASAS e-test is clearly a formative assessment, but also a dynamic type of assessment which Hall defines formative assessment as an assessment used to help the educator and the student to bridge the gap between what they know and what they need to know. Like I mentioned, adult learners like Edith have been out of school for many years. Having the ability to bridge the gap of what the student already knows and what they need to learn is a valuable tool for the educational plan that Mrs. McLean wants to implement. I believe and agree that how Mrs. McLean is implementing the CASAS test is a great way for her to meet the students' needs, but also for her to create the best educational plan for them. Mrs. McLean shared with me the individual skills profile results from the CASAS test, which looks like this. She takes these results to analyze the areas of needs that the students might have, but also to identify what the strengths are. If we recall, OB and SAP explained that formative assessments have a direct impact on the teaching materials and strategies employed. This is what CASA's results aid Mrs. McLean with. Based on the test, Mrs. McLean determines if the student will benefit from direct instruction or if they can do a self-paced online curriculum. The test also assisted the educator in placing the student in the correct courses. Mrs. McLean noticed that Edith's grade equivalent for math is 7th grade. She explained that based on that result, she believes that this will benefit from taking a remedial math course first before she is placed on the required Algebra 1 class that she needs to receive her diploma. The CASAS test will then be administered again in 3 months. This is where the CASAS test becomes a dynamic assessment, which according to OB and SAP is more of an interactive assessment. The CASAS pretest allowed the educator to identify the need of the student in a certain area, in this case, math. 3 months from now, after this has been enrolled in a remedial class, she will then be given the CASAS post-test to see if her math grade level has risen and if she's ready for the Algebra 1 course. Like I mentioned before, I believe that Mrs. McLean's implementation of formative and dynamic assessment is the best way for her to meet the needs of her students. I think that the student and the program could also benefit from implementation of self-assessment and peer assessment. According to Hall, self-assessment and peer assessment are recommended for helping learners to understand and sometimes frame the criteria against which their work is judged. Having the student to take a moment to conduct a self-assessment before, during, and after the program will allow them to take more ownership of their educational plan. I think self-assessments will allow the students to find purpose to the reason why they have returned to school and also to encourage them to stay in the educational path that they have decided. Self-assessments can be done through surveys at different intervals throughout the year. Peer assessments could be used to help the students actively engage with other students on the contents they are learning. Having the opportunity to gather new views on how to study helps create a sense of community and support system which many of these students need. Having a peer tutoring group could be a way to implement peer assessment. Students can help each other on their weaknesses and use the new knowledge that they have acquired to help each other out. In conclusion, Mrs. McLean's usage of the CASAS e-test is a great example of a diagnostic approach in assessing students enrolling in an adult education program. Hall reminds us that assessment can simultaneously address various purposes. CASA-C test allows Mrs. McLean not only to know where the student's educational level lies, but also what curriculum they need to start on. There are other assessments that I think the program could take advantage of. For example, the peer and self-assessment. Using these in conjunction with the formative and dynamic assessments could help the students succeed in their educational goals and continue to help the program meet the needs of the students. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this. Have a great day.